Today on Arts for Life's virtual studio, we'll be creating a super simple loom. Stay tuned, I'll let you know what you need and how to get started. Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey. I'm the inpatient program coordinator at Brenner's Children's Hospital. Welcome to our virtual studio where we believe that art is for everyone. Today we're going to be making a loom out of cardboard, and I'll show you how to warp it with some threads. A loom is just a device that you use to make fabric or cloth or wall hangings. You can do a lot of different types of weavings on a loom. So stay tuned. I'm going to flip the camera around and show you everything you need to make your own. To make your loom, you'll need a pencil or anything to make a mark with, a ruler to measure marks, scissors, glue, and some string to warp your loom. You'll also need cardboard to make the loom, or any type of like stiff board, and you want it this size, a little bit bigger than the weaving you want. So you could really do any size board. If you want a really larger board, you could make a really small weaving. Just depends on what you want your final weaving to look like. And you'll need some strips of cardboard. So I cut my cardboard into a 8.5 by 11 rectangle, because it's the size of paper and kind of a really manageable size. And you want to make sure your board's stiff. So when I put pressure on the two edges of this board, it doesn't bend this way either, and so that is really important. If it bends, you might want to glue another piece of board on it so it's really strong. And the first thing you want to do is make marks where you're going to cut it to put your strings are. So I'm going to mark this end and this end. And I'm going to do a little guideline 1/2 inch in from the edge of the board. And this is where I'm going to cut to. Do the same thing over here. And this is just a guideline, so it doesn't need to be perfect. Then next I'm going to do is make my marks for cutting. I'm going to do my marks about 1/2 inch apart. You can do them anywhere from 1/4 inch, 1 centimeter, 1/2 inch. If you go much bigger than that, you might get a pretty weak weaving. And then I'm going to leave 1 inch on each side of my loom on these corners for stability, so it's good to have a little bit of extra room. So I'm going to mark 1 inch on each corner, and I'm not going to cut. That's where I'll start. So over here, I'm going to make my marks in between here and here on this line at 1/2 inch. So there's 1/2 inch. Okay, I have it marked. It's really important that you have the marks right across from each other. I forgot to mark this end, so that your string will be straight. You don't want your loom to have diagonal strings. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these, and the reason we made the guidelines is so I know when to stop cutting. So it'll be the same on each side. So I start 1 inch in, and then I'm just going to cut each mark that's 1/2 inch apart. Okay, I have all my cuts made. They're right across from each other. And this will be how I warp the loom. And then I have these 1-inch cardboard strips. I cut these from the same box that I cut this out of. And I want them to be the length of my loom. So I'm just gonna make a mark right there and cut this end off. So it's the same length, and then same thing over here. And what these are going to do is elevate my threads so that I have a little bit more room to weave. It also takes a little bit of pressure off of my cuts so that these don't bend too much. So that's what our glue is for. I'm just going to do a line of glue on the back of that board and stick it right below the mark I made. That's 1/2 inch down. So you don't want to cover up any of these cuts, but you just want it right below that. And put this one over here. Beautiful. So this is the loom, pretty simple. And now I'm going to show you how to warp it. So I have this thread. Any thin thread works good for a warp for this type of loom. If you used like a thicker yarn, you might have to, instead of cutting just one slit, make this into a little V. I'll show you, I'll do one on this loom. Just so you have a little bit more room. See how that's a V? I just cut it another cut instead of just a line. And that would just be if you were using something really thick that's like really hard to get in there. You wanted that type of yarn. So for your, I'm using this thin cotton yarn. So to start, I'm just gonna stick it on here, and I like to wrap it around and just tie a knot. So just a little overhand knot, and then I will double knot it so that it stays. So just around the end. And then I'm gonna go straight over my cardboard strip that I glued and go into the one that's straight across. So I have this inch on my border, and then you see the back, I'm just gonna go around and go around to the next notch on the back. So I'm not wrapping it around, I'm just going to the next one over so it comes out. And this was facing this way. Oh, my yarn fell over there. And then I'm gonna go straight across to this one, and I'm just gonna go around this little tab and straight across again and around this little tab. And I want to pull these, I don't want them, I don't want to rip the cardboard, but I want them sort of tight. If they're too loose, they'll move around too much on me. So you can see how these two pieces of cardboard are just holding up this, and when you go to weave, it'll just make that a little bit easier. So you're just going to continue doing that around, across, around, across, all the way to the end. And these threads on the loom are called the warp threads, and the threads you weave with are the weft threads. Okay, and then I end up on the same side as I started. So I'm going to pull this around and wrap it around my last tab again so I can tie a knot. So I'll go ahead and cut it. A little extra long, just room for tying. And I'll wrap it around there. That wasn't actually a knot, so I'll just double knot it. So wrap it around this last string and pull. So I have a little knot that's just wrapped around like where I started, and you won't be able to see these. And there you go, you have a warp thread. Now you're ready to weave. Thank you so much for joining me today on Arts for Life's virtual studio. Here's my finished loom. I actually just started weaving on it with some t-shirt yarn that I showed you all how to make on a different virtual studio video. If you make anything on your loom or make your own loom, we would love to see a picture of it. Just tag us, Arts for Life NC. And thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, art is for everyone. Bye.